today I'd like to give you an update on the innovations we've done in eBusiness Suite on your behalf in 2020. So we've delivered a number of different vehicles for you to consume new functionality in 2020. The main one is the 12.2.10 release, which I'll be talking quite a bit about today. We've also provided 2 updates with our Enterprise Command Centers technology. We've delivered a release to U.S. federal government agencies for their e-invoicing requirements, had a new release of our mobile applications, the usual legislative update cycle for our human resources applications, some updates to our person data removal tool, and updates for our cloud manager, which is the basis for managing eBusiness Suite on our cloud infrastructure. So we'll touch on those things today. Now, the 12.2.10 release represents another release in a fairly regular pattern of annual releases we've been doing for many years now, updating the 12.2 release with new bug fixes and new enhancements, new features. So I'll tell you about the 12.2.10 release today. Along with that, we have provided the 5th update now on roughly a 6-month cycle for Enterprise Command Center. So that was initially delivered in about 2 years ago in the fall of 2018, and now here in the fall of 2020, we've delivered our 5th version of that. Now, sometimes we're asked, how do you decide what to put into eBusiness Suite in terms of new features? And so we have an ongoing pattern of doing things with new technologies like Enterprise Command Centers, but we also spend a lot of our resource on enhancements that come from our support communities, come from customers interacting in the MyOracle support communities and voting on enhancement ideas that customers come up with, and things that are popular go to the top of our list. So just to give you a sense of the dimension of that, we've had over 21,000 users participate in those support communities. We've had over 6,000 ideas created. I mean, this really is the main way that users publish their ideas to us and get reaction from other customers, and then we interact and decide to put certain things in the release. So just to give you a sense, there's actually a fairly small percentage of those ideas that get endorsement or get positive votes from, say, as many as 20 customers. And each vote was worth 10 points, so 200 points means 20 customers basically voted for this. And so that's a small percentage of the enhancements rise to that level, and we've already delivered about 35% of those. We have more in progress, so we're actually paying quite a bit of attention on the ones that get a lot of votes. There's about another 5% with a score of like 10 to 19 customer votes, and we've done probably over 25% of those overall. So I think if we are listening to the support communities and doing priorities based on what the feedback is that we get there. We've delivered over 500 ideas from the support communities in EBS to date. So I encourage you to participate in the support communities and comment on other people's ideas, introduce your own ideas, and hopefully we'll be able to do those for you. So just to motivate the idea of Enterprise Command Centers, we've had that now for a couple of years. Many of you may be familiar with it, but just to lay a little bit of foundation, the idea here is that an end user will, with Enterprise Command Centers, begins their regular session in eBusiness Suite with a home page that's essentially a BI dashboard. You have key indicators and charts and graphs and search refinement capabilities on the left side, and you can navigate your way as a user to the data that is the right transactions for you to work on. And then right there in context in that same dashboard is a list of the transactions that make up that data. You can drill directly from this by clicking on them into one of the transaction screens to take action. So the idea here is to eliminate a lot of the need for operational reporting, things like invoice aging reports or expedite reports or stuck orders or late shipments or any of the kind of things you might do to help people get oriented to what the high priorities are, because they can find their way to that dashboard through these interfaces without those reports. So it helps IT by eliminating the need for so much custom reporting, and it helps the users be more efficient by getting directly to what they need to do without going back and forth between reports and the transaction system. Now, this applies, all the things I say about command centers, even though they came out with 12.2.10, our latest release, these are applicable back to the 12.2.4 release. So really, if you're on any reasonably current release of 12.2, you'd be able to just apply these command centers and use them. And you don't have to buy anything. This is just more user interface of eBusiness Suite. And there's no technology or applications license that's needed to use these. So you just have to, if you're not on 12.2, you have to get to 12.2. If you're on 12.2, you should just download it and start using it. We have these command centers now as of 12.2.10. We have 30 command centers, which comprise over 100 dashboards across virtually every product in the suite. I'll show you several new ones that we have introduced here in 12.2.10. But the expectation generally is that whatever you're doing in eBusiness Suite, you'll probably find a command center that you can access that will help you with that business function. Specifically, what we've done in the current release, we've introduced 8 new command centers and 30 new dashboards, not just in the latest release, but in the 2020 releases. So if you look down at the footnotes on this slide, there's the March release is one that we already described in a prior video. And then the September release, which is the new things I'm talking about today, together those can comprise what we've done in 2020. So we'll list all of those things, but the things I'm going to talk about today will be the ones we just introduced here in the fall of 2020, because there's another video that presents and demonstrates the capabilities we added back in March. So let's start down to the different product areas and take a tour around and just see what some of the highlights are in these different areas. So we'll start in the order management and logistics area, which is one of our most productive here in this last release cycle. So one of the things we've added is a modern shopping experience in our iStore product. Now, iStore is not generally used by customers as a business to consumer type of web shopping experience that you use, say if you're a retailer dealing with the end consumers. It doesn't have behaviors like since the customers who bought this also like that, and things that you typically expect in a consumer shopping experience. iStore is often used by customers for B2B shopping. So if you're a component supplier and you have a set of industrial customers, you want to present a shopping interface that they can use to find the right things to buy from you, but you don't need to treat them like they're consumers, where you're going to make suggestions based on what similar people liked or something like that. So, or examine their browsing history to decide what to suggest to them. I mean, this is a more straightforward, just present a nice interface for selling type of requirement. So here we have modernized that user interface now to allow you to present a more modern shopping experience to your customers if you've deployed iStore. So just show you what that's like. You could you'd be a provider of motors, for example, that might be used in industrial equipment. And so if your customer says, I want to buy a particular type of motor, they type in a keyword like washdown, this is a particular type of motor, means you can submerge it. And then they identify the description that fits what they're looking for, that gives them a list of motors that match that description. You can see it in this sort of row at a time list format. You can see a table to see more of them all at once. We have a grid display. And once you've looked at these motors, you might decide to narrow the search further with some search refinement. So there's a particular horsepower motor that we need, like a 2 horsepower motor. So you can type that in and narrow the search to motors that have 2 horsepower in their description. So once you do that, you've narrowed the list further, and then now you might want to sort by price range. So say, let's look at things that are in the $500 to $750 range, and that will narrow the search down to ones that comply with that price point. And so you look at this list, you pick a couple of those that look like they might be a good fit. They have some minor differences and they're different in price, so you want to compare them. So you check those and click compare. And when you do that, you can see a comparison window that shows you all the attributes that are different between those two. The description's a little different. You can see that the one of those has a lower RP. The first one on the left has lower RPM than the one on the right, and it's also lower price. So you decide, well, for our needs, that lower one is fine. So we'll just add that one to the cart by clicking here right from this interface. We add it to our shopping cart and check out. So you can present that type of shopping interface to your customers if you're running iStore on 12.2. Similarly, we've added a new command center in the advanced pricing area. Now, in pricing, the core challenge is that you may have hundreds of price lists, and you also have promotions and discounts. All sorts of things are registered in the advanced pricing system. So the issue is, how do you find the right particular lines when you want to make a change, when you want to maintain that pricing information? So let's suppose that there's a few price lists where we want to make a price increase. I want to increase prices on a certain set of products. So this command center now gives you an interface where you see all the different things that are there. We want to focus on price lists. So you click on price list either from the key indicator or the tag cloud. Now we're focused on price lists, and so then you can go up to the left and introduce or select a qualifier like which market segment you want, and then pick a value for that like US consumer. So we're going to go filter by the US consumer market segment. Once we apply that filter, we're down to 9 price lists for that market segment. And so out of the 9, you go down to the details and say, okay, there are 3 that relate to drills. Well, those are the prices we want to increase. Those are the price lists for drills there. So let's check all 3 of those. And then what the new feature beyond just the command center is that you can actually export that information to Web ADI. So basically, having clicked on that, you can then get an export that goes into Excel, which you download, and you can now use Excel formulas. You could directly type new prices into the column here. Or you could use Excel's formulas capabilities to calculate what new prices ought to be, however you want to do it. When you have new prices that are the ones you want, you can then upload this spreadsheet, and it'll go in to be the new prices the new price lists for these items. So with that, you have used the command center to filter to the right set of work to do. You've been able to bring it down into Excel, interact with it, and put it back. So that's the new capability in the advanced pricing command center. Now, beyond command centers, there's things we've done functionally to improve order management, things like being able to, and these are customer-driven ideas, so a lot of things here are things that customers have been asking for, in some cases for a long time. One of them is the ability to separately price included and invoice for included items. So if you if somebody buys a laptop and it comes with an extra charger, even though it may come in one package, you may want to invoice them for the laptop and the charger separately, because if you want to maintain pricing and profitability information for chargers as well as laptops, you may want to have invoices and revenue associated with that charger as well as with the laptop. So if you have bundles of products but want to keep the pricing separate, we now support doing that within order management. Another capability we added a customer request is called line sets for promotional items, and this is a sort of a case where you buy one get one free. And what would happen sometimes is that if you say you buy a coffee pot and you get a free coffee cup, if the coffee pot was back ordered, we would go ahead and ship the coffee cup. So actually what you want is that for the coffee cup not to get item, we call it, to not ship unless the actual paid item, the buy item, ships. And so now we can tie those things together and make sure that those are all fulfilled only at the same time. Back in March, we introduced an incentive compensation command center. So again, this is one of the cases where we discussed that in the prior video, so I won't go into it here. So shifting gears to logistics, here we've actually done an enormous amount of advance in the last year, and so I'll describe some of the key capabilities we have. We have a inventory management command center, and back in March we added a receiving dashboard to that, which I described in the earlier video. What we've added more recently now in the fall here is a reservations dashboard. And so here the idea is that you can manage doing manual reservations either for inventory, either to satisfy sales orders or discrete work order jobs. So on the interface here, let me just take you through how that works. In the interface, you can see here day by day where you have unreserved demand. Okay, these are the orders that you have where you haven't done inventory reservations to satisfy the order. So let's focus on the nearest day, that would be the September 6th day, and let's focus only on that unreserved demand. So just by clicking on that piece of the graph, we're now in the context of the unreserved demand just for that one day. So then we look across and we see some of the demand comes from work orders that are going to consume inventory on that day, but our focus today is on sales orders. We want to make sure that particular sales orders ship on time. So let's look at the unreserved demand for a particular part. And when we do that, we see a list of customers who have demand for that, who need that inventory fulfilled in order to be able to ship an order. And so here's where the judgment comes in. The reason that you're doing this is because if you have a scarcity and you have to decide which order you're going to fulfill and which order might be back ordered or delayed, if you're kind of rationing something that's in short supply, you might say, well, okay, yesterday I shipped an order for one of these customers, so let's ship some of this inventory to a different one, just so we, because somebody just got some, so let's ship some to somebody else. Or maybe one of these is your best customer, and it's really extremely important that you always satisfy a service level where you avoid a penalty or something associated with failing to ship to a particular customer. So you can use any number of business reasons to perform this allocation. That's kind of why it's a manual rather than automatic process here you may want to go into to use that judgment to decide which orders to fulfill with scarce inventory. So this helps you find your way to the right set of choices and to frame. So when we click on that one customer we've decided to ship to, you then can go down to the particular sales orders, and then you go over to the reservation screen and you can create the reservation for that sales order. By the way, this reservation screen itself is new in 12.2.10. It's part of our pattern of moving the key screens and the applications from forms to HTML. We still have the forms interface, but now increasingly you can just rely on HTML screens to do transactional work in Business Suite. Now, in addition to the reservations capability we talked about, in the Inventory Management Command Center, we have an activity dashboard, and this is where you're monitoring the activities of people doing pick and put away operations in your warehouse, in dealing with your inventory. So we have we added in that capability to do the activities back in March of this year, so I won't go into the detail of that. What we did add in the most recent release in 2020 in the fall here is the ability to add user-defined activities to the types of activities you can manage in that command center and in the mobile app. So the idea here is that there may well be operations you're doing in your warehouse that are not standard operations, simply pick or put away, but are things like unloading a trailer or shrink wrapping a pallet or doing something that even though it's a part of a larger process itself may take a couple of hours to do. So you want to track the resource being consumed in that. And so you can manage resource allocation to that activity. So you can create these user-defined activities, and then they will surface in the command center so you can determine how long everybody is spending doing those activities and balance the workload. And also the end users in the warehouse can track their time on the different activities using the mobile app. Now, also in the mobile app, we have some more flexibility to define to pick by more different document types. So before now, what you've been able to do is say, I want to pick all of the inventory associated with a particular sales order or a particular pick slip. We now add more different types of documents that organize units of picking activity, things like deliveries. You may have several deliveries to the same customer. But you may want to go do the picking associated with one or more of those deliveries because you're trying to fill up a truck that's going to go to that customer. So what you do as a warehouse person working in the warehouse is you can scan the delivery, and it'll tell you how many tasks there are associated with picking that delivery. And then you could scan. And so in this first screen, you've picked 7 total tasks associated with the first delivery. Then you scan another delivery. There's only 1 task associated with that. Now you're up to a total of 8 tasks. So you keep doing this until you've got a number of tasks that's reasonable for you to undertake in one pass through the warehouse. And then once you say you're done picking deliveries to do, the system will then provide an optimized travel path for you to complete all the picks within the warehouse in one pass. So a simple way to think about this is if you were picking groceries for multiple customers in a grocery store, you could decide how many of those you could handle in one pass, and then having established that, the system would then tell you like what aisles to visit in what order to most optimally pick all the things for those grocery orders you're trying to fulfill. So it gives you a sense of what this accomplishes. So again, all these things are things requested by customers who are using these products, but very nice technology. Another thing we've added in the warehouse management space, again, area we've been very active, is in what we call nested or consolidated LPNs across projects. So here the idea is that you want to be able to consolidate and move material associated with multiple projects, but not lose the project reference. So this is particularly important in the aerospace defense area, for example, where each particular item that you have is associated with a particular, it's project manufacturing, so associated with a particular ship or a particular plane or whatever it is that you're building. So you have to keep the association of the items with the project that they're on, even though you group them together for purposes of moving them around. So keep making that all work correctly is something we've really improved in 12.2.10 release cycle. One other feature we've added in inventory, it's kind of an enhancement of something we've had for a little while, which is the area of material classification. So this is a case where you may have the same product, the same SKU may have different packaging depending on which kind of customer you're shipping it to. So if I make shock absorbers, I may package them one way if I'm shipping them to an automotive manufacturer, or package them a different way if I'm shipping them to a resale store like AutoZone or Walmart or something. So we've had that capability since 12.2.6 to print on the outbound shipping document what the particular packaging variant is, in this case, assuming that you're using material classification to reflect the packaging variant. You now can track on-hand inventory with that same and figure out how many of each of those different packagings you have in on-hand inventory. That's the new feature we added. And what this is all heading toward is a broader support for country of origin tracking. So we don't have what I would call complete country of origin support, end to end in the supply chain today. But what a lot of customers do is they have processes that track the countries of origin of the goods that they need because they have to have certain constraints about country of origin for products they ship to end customers. And so this just gives you more tracking that we have in the base product for country of origin. You can now see the on-hand inventory you have if it's tagged by what country the goods came from. So in addition, this is a capability we talked about last time in March for maintaining essentially item definition information. We have a command center that helps you maintain your item catalog. And we also have a landed cost management dashboard that we introduced back in March that we covered in the prior video. Okay, shifting gears to procurement. This is another area where we've been doing some very interesting things. So we've improved the shopping experience in the March release significantly, and we covered that and gave a nice demo of that in that video. So I won't do the demo of the shopping experience here, but what we have added is a particular feature called Auto Suggest Matching Catalog Items. So here the idea is that you're a user and you think you just know what you want to buy. and you don't want to bother to shop for it, you're starting to put in a non-catalog request. So like I'm not going to assume they don't have what I need. I'm going to just type in something I want to buy. And what happens now is you can, when you type that in, so let's just check the catalog for similar items. And once you do that, it actually finds that in inventory, it may not be the brand that you thought you were shopping for that you had heard about as a requisitioner or a shopper, but there may be something in inventory that, or in our catalog that we have that might meet your needs. So we actually do have a microscope in the catalog that might meet your needs here. So maybe you can add that directly from this interface to the shopping cart and say, yeah, that one's good enough for me. I'll go ahead and buy that. And that helps helps reduce the actual non-catalog purchases you wind up making. Another capability we just added that's very cool is that, and this really is, it's a result of the shopping experiences, but it really is for the procurement professional. And this is the ability, it's called an employee shopping tracker. And what this does is uses the command center to track the shopping sessions and the searches that your shoppers do in those sessions, and categorize them as to whether they resulted in an item being added to the cart, or they produced results but nothing got added to the cart. Basically, the person saw that you had things but then didn't buy any of them. Or also the searches that didn't produce any results. What were people looking for that they just didn't find at all? And what's really neat about this is that all of that shopping that you're encouraging people to do by rolling out this nice interface for internet procurement, behind the scenes, you can actually, as the procurement professional, say, well, wait a minute, every time they query for a particular type of goods, we have those in our catalogs, but people don't buy them. They go off and do some non-catalog thing because people aren't satisfied with the things that are in our catalog. Or maybe people are looking for something we just don't have at all and we need to add it. So this gives you a lot more visibility into how to improve the responsiveness of your catalog to what your requisitioners actually need. So back in March, we introduced the Procurement Command Center with a sourcing and item analysis dashboard. We covered those in the prior video. And we also introduced a Project Procurement Command Center and covered that in the prior video. So shifting gears to projects now, the big thing we're working on in projects right now is a very large project really aimed at the US government, where the government is standardizing on a concept called G-invoicing for how agencies of government bill for if one agency performs work for another agency, the requesting agency and the servicing agency, if you will, that goes through a common terms and conditions agreements repository, which is maintained in a central place called the G-invoicing repository. There's and then it's settled through a common settlement mechanism. So we are building support both on the buying or requesting side and the selling or servicing side, agency side, for those required flows. Now that's very important for the scale of the US government, and so we're doing all the things that they are requiring as part of the details of that solution. But kind of coming out of that, we're trying also to broaden what we've done for public sector, make it more applicable for the broad commercial audience. So for example, we have now taken budgetary control, which was originally thought of mainly as a public sector feature because all public sector entities generally run off of funds and budgets. But you may have budgets in your own organization for projects and want to exert budgetary control over those. To make sure that each step of the project is within the agreed budget, and apply some of those same budget disciplines even in a commercial context. So we now have support for that by generalizing that public sector feature to be more broadly applicable. Let me turn to manufacturing, and again, an area where we've made a lot of advances. So one is in outside processing, and this is an area where we have Process Manufacturing Command Center that was introduced previously, but what we've added this time is what we call an outside processing dashboard. The idea here is that what outside processing means is that you're going along making the goods, that you're making the batches and following your recipes and coming out with your products that could be pharmaceuticals, could be food and beverage, could be metals, lots of process manufacturing outputs. But the idea is that at some point along that process, you send that material out to a third party, a manufacturing partner, to perform a specialized step. So let's say you're making topical discussion, you're making a vaccine and you have a big vat of it, but you send that to somebody else who has the equipment to put it into little vials. And after it's put into little vials, then you bring it back and then you package those up and ship them. So that's an example of outside processing where somebody else does a step in your manufacturing process. So the issue we have that we're trying to solve with the command center is that you may have delays. So let's suppose we ship those things out and we were expecting them back at a certain point from our manufacturing partner, but they're late. So how do you get to the bottom of expediting that problem if that starts to happen? If you're the production supervisor and you're ready for the next step and the things aren't showing up, how do you deal with that? So here we have a dashboard where if you click on operations with PO receipt delays, that means you haven't gotten back those things from your manufacturing partner. You click on that, you zero into the 4 cases where you have that, and now those are grouped by how late the delivery is. So of course we want the ones that are most delayed. So we'll go over and click on the ones that are more than 4 days overdue. And here we see there are 2 of those, and here we see them. And it turns out those both have the same procurement buyer. If you look where the finger is there, it points to the buyer name, Larry Bass. So we're going to call Larry as a production supervisor. We're going to call Larry Bass and have him get in touch because he's the buyer interacting with this manufacturing partner, and have him call and try to understand when you can get your late order fulfilled. So that's essentially how the manufacturing process command center helps you deal with late outside processing orders. Another capability of process manufacturing we've added is improving the genealogy for multi-lot batches. So here's a case where what we've been able to do previously is to take all we know is that a certain set of ingredients were all consumed in a particular work order, which is called a batch in process manufacturing. But you had a work order to make 30,000 pills. And so all you know is that all these different lots went into 30,000 pills, and those 30,000 pills came out as lots, 1, 2, 3 of pills of product. What we could do now in 12.2.10 is keep the individual correspondence of lots of ingredients that went into lots of final products. So if the first 150 milligrams of an ingredient went into the first 15,000 pills in lot 1, and then the next 100 milligrams of ingredient went into the next 10,000 pills that came out in lot 2, you can actually see, so if you have a recall situation where something's wrong with lot 2, you can actually chain it back to the specific lot of the ingredient that went into that particular lot of final product. So that kind of traceability is very important, particularly for long-running batches where you do a work order to run for several days, and it's going to produce many, many products. And so you really want to know, like, if you have a final product that has an issue on a particular day, which is the lot of ingredient that went in on that day. And for pharma and food and beverage, that kind of granularity is extremely important, as you can imagine. Okay, we also have enhancement that was asked for by customers that to be able to take if you're monitoring equipment and registering a parameter reading or whatever, now you can basically do that multiple different times. So you could, every 10 minutes, you could take a reading of temperature and record multiple readings during the production process for a particular parameter. In the discrete case, we have the idea, we already mentioned earlier with discrete that you could do, showed you that you could do inventory reservations for discrete jobs. That's actually a new capability in general, that to be able to both auto reserve upon the creation of a work order, or as we showed, go and manually reserve at the detail level what inventory items you're going to consume in a particular discrete job work order. So that's That's a new capability. Those reservations around just discrete job orders is new capability in 12.2.10. Then outsourced manufacturing, we've got new capability. This is not just the case where you're outsourcing a particular step of a process, but you're really outsourcing the production of, say, an assembly that's then consumed in your final product. So maybe you place orders for material that either you obtain and then ship to your manufacturing partner, who then ships you back a final product, or maybe you just buy the material and have it drop shipped directly to your manufacturing partner. So either of those flows can happen. And now what we could do is consolidate. You have multiple of these different components. You can consolidate all of those things onto a single replenishment sales order to a manufacturing partner. Back in March, we went through a pretty interesting demo of the Quality Command Center. So if you're interested in that, you should refer back to that video for that. And finally, in Product Hub, we have some enhanced setup options that are available that customers have asked for. The ability to maintain multi-row item attributes in Web ADI, the spreadsheet upload-download approach. And also there's some APIs that people have wanted to use that previously required a Product Hub license, and now we're basically opening that up so that you can deal with the inventory, the item master APIs for items and cross-references and related items without having to license Product Hub. So turning to our enterprise asset management area, this is an area where we do an awful lot of work based on customer requests. So I'll show you a few things that we've done here. We have new supervisor overviews and technician overviews in the mobile app, so you can look at a summary of your, if you're the supervisor, what are all the resources that haven't been assigned something to do, or how many work orders you have that are overdue. As the technician, you can see what are the things I have that are overdue, or what is my list of things that are on my work list today, and then you drill to that detail. So gives you an easy way to kind of get a summary of your position in your work for the day. And in addition to that, we've done a huge set of things that were off of that list of customer-driven requests, customer-voted enhancements. Things like being able to do mass assignment of work orders to employees, just makes it more efficient to use the system, automatically notifying employee assignments, employees assigned to a work order. So the things that just make the system function more efficiently, both for people interacting clerically with it and for users who are getting assigned work. We have an asset tracking command center that we talked about back in March. So again, that's something you can refer to that video to see more detail of. In the service area, we've done quite a number of things as well across the different aspects of service. In field service, back in March, we introduced a command center. Depot repair, we introduced a command center back in March. We have now a new dashboard for repair technicians and repair managers. You can see discussion of that. And what at that point back in March, we introduced the idea of making prescriptive recommendations, basically having the system recommend what parts are likely to be needed when some product comes in for repair, so that by the time it gets in, you've already got the service parts for it. We've actually enhanced that capability now to support using multiple models for each prediction, and basically scoring the models and then determining which one is best to rely on for that type of prediction. In teleservice, we now support having templates to create service requests, so you can specify that to make the entry of a new service request more efficient for a teleservice operator. And in Advanced Scheduler, we have this is really, the whole point of this was to produce a new HTML UI that you could use as an alternative to Forms UI. We've been enhancing it sort of over the life of the 12.2 release. Most recently in 12.2.10, we've actually made a finer grained Gantt chart with a 15-minute timeline view, and made the HTML UI more configurable, and also added some more HTML UIs associated with setups. In service contracts, we now support the ability to essentially roll back a termination of a service contract. If somebody calls and says, well, actually, I don't really want to terminate that service contract, you can basically reinstate it. You can reset it to be active and reinstate or recreate the original billing schedule. Again, a customer voted enhancement. Turning to the human capital management area, I've done some things that are interesting around time cards in this area. So with mobile release 9, you can use somebody can enter time information, and then a rules engine can evaluate more precisely how to break that time up and calculate the different overages that may be associated with that time. So for example, an employee might enter that they work 12 hours. And what will happen with the rules engine is that'll automatically get changed in the time card to be sort of 8 hours or 10 hours of regular time and 4 hours of overtime, or whatever the appropriate calculations are for the entitlements if somebody's gone into a weekend or worked too many hours for a day, or whatever those kind of rules are. You can take a raw time entry, and the rules engine can actually kind of update the time card appropriately. And then if there's a time card that is submitted late, or if it needs to be changed, oftentimes there's a justification that's required, and so this allows you to populate some standard justification. The information is let the employee handle updating that information so that you can handle exceptions and audit type situations more effectively. The person data removal tool is the only safe way to remove personal identifying information from eBusiness Suite. People shouldn't be trying other approaches to delete rows or to otherwise obfuscate data in eBusiness Suite. So I encourage everyone to use this. You don't have to pay for it. It comes with both 12.1 and 12.2 of eBusiness Suite. More recently, we've had requests for APIs to be able to do programmatic updates to the metadata, to basically the rules and constraints, and to call to check, get the result of a check of the constraints for a particular person, or actually to have a different program that drives the actual call to remove the person data for a person who's passed all the checks. So if you like all the detailed functionality of person data removal tool, but you want to have your own sort of administrative framework that kicks this off, or that has various approvals associated with progressing different steps, you kind of want to have your own flow with it. You can call these underlying APIs and integrate it into your own flow. So turning to financials, this is an area where back in March, we covered a lot of really exciting functionality about making the period close go a lot more smoothly. So really cool demos there you go back and refer to. Similarly, the leasing that you have to do to comply with IFRS 16, ASC 842, basically to put your leases on the balance sheet. And we took advantage of the fact you registered all that lease information and let you learn a lot more about those leases. In fact, manage those leases, manage their renewals better. So we showed that back in the March 2020 video. What we've done more recently in Property Manager is to handle some, again, cases that are asked for by some of our largest, most complex customers. Things where leases had options, and then if you cancel the option, it affects the accounting, and we now take care of that case. You can decide to, under certain circumstances, it may be appropriate to do the amortization schedules through the last option date on the contract. Handling, doing a future dated lease termination and so forth. So there's a lot of very new, very specific capabilities that have been needed for customers with a lot of sophisticated situations in this leasing area. And then with our vendor financing leasing product, the lease and finance management, here we had a command center that we introduced in March of 2020. What we've added more recently in lease accounting is the ability to finance aftermarket services and some functionality to simplify transfers and assumptions of leases to make it, because there's a lot of accounting history that goes along with who the prior lessor was. And so when you assume a lease, you have to do work to get the schedules to be configured correctly so they go forward with the new lessor or the new lessee as opposed to the original lessee. So that's support is there now in 12.2.10. Switching gears to technology, here we have the overall focus with the technology. Probably the most important thing we're doing is improving the automation that you can take advantage of if you run eBusiness Suite on Oracle's cloud infrastructure. And the key tool we have for doing that is called Cloud Manager. So I'll talk about that and then some other things we've added in the core of eBusiness Suite technology. So around that EBS on the cloud infrastructure idea, there's really three areas that we invest in. One is in provisioning, which is the ability to set the system up and configure not just straightforward configurations, but advanced configurations that are things where you have a firewall support for some part of the system to be outside the firewall and things like that. We focus on lift and shift a fully configured system. You have something running on premise, you just want to move it to the cloud. And then the third is under lifecycle management, which you do after you've moved into the cloud, the ability to do clones and backups and restores and add nodes and things like that once you're in the cloud. So conceptually, those are the things that we're trying to accomplish. Now, what we've delivered earlier in 2020 was a lot of support for the 19C database in these different scenarios and ability to do nice backup and restore, snapshot-based cloning with the 19C database and the compute environment, and so forth. Some things that we are working on at the time of this recording, but you should check whether we have these available at the time you're listening to this or you're interested in it, because likely this will be available. So I have it here listed as roadmap, but you should check because it may well all be available by the time you hear this. So here what we focused on is much more support for scenarios like the multi-zone DMZ deployment. If you want to deploy an application like internet procurement outside the firewall, or iSupplier portal outside the firewall, support for doing that. And then expanding our lifecycle management support for our database services for what we call VMDB and ExaCloud service, as well as to add and delete app node tiers and other capabilities that are listed here. So really quite a bit of work in advancing the automation scenarios that we support. And this is all manifest in an interface we call Cloud Manager. So the Cloud Manager UI, you can see here from an individual instance that you're looking at, you can see a lot of details about that instance and its topology. You also have buttons. You can click a button to clone it. You can click a button to create a backup. You can click a button to add a node to it. So it's really shows you the simplicity of doing system management in this compute infrastructure environment. Over on the right side, you can see a list of your backups. You can do a one button. You could select one of those environments, then select to provision from that backup, essentially restore from the backup in a single operation, or you can just provision a fresh installation. So this gives you a sense of how simple it is to do configuration type activities when you are using our Cloud Manager with our cloud infrastructure. We have a lot of videos on our learning channel to sort of there's a whole area called Move and Improve EBS and OCI. So Nadia Benjou has a strategy session out there, and that's what you go to determine what the very latest is. So as we have this later Cloud Manager capabilities I described available, there'll be a whole video describing all of that in detail. We have other resources that you can go access to get more detail around running EBS on Oracle Cloud. Now, outside of the OCI, outside of running EBS and OCI, the Enterprise Command Center framework has a capability that that's essentially a system management type capability for ECC, which is new. And we've actually used that as part of that purchasing example where you monitor the purchasing shopping sessions. But more generally, what you can do is track how many users are using various dashboards. If you want to set up audit trails on activities in particular dashboards, those things will help you understand now that you rolled out ECC, where is it being used? Are there places where people are placing heavy loads, or they're places where people haven't figured out that they might be able to benefit from it. So you can basically monitor and understand where ECC is being used in your organization. And then with the core Oracle application framework, that's the basis for all our HTML screens. We have a new My Work List pop-up that comes from the header, so you can just get directly to what your workflow approvals are that you need to do without having to navigate to a whole workflow approvals form. I have a number of other things that are listed here that you can take advantage of. So to summarize, we've delivered through a variety of different release vehicles, mainly through the 12.2.10 release, but also through the prior ECC release in March and through other off-cycle releases that we've done, an enormous amount of functionality in 2020, and all of that is done to make you more successful with the products, and nothing I've described today requires you to buy anything you don't already have. You need to just take advantage of the investments you've already made and take advantage of all this work we've done on your behalf. You can always get more information about what we're doing in EBS at oracle.com/EBS. That's where we have all our release announcements, support-related announcements, and everything. So I'd encourage you to check that regularly and to drill down for the associated direct from development videos on our learning subscription. Also, just to say, even though there's quite a bit we covered today, this is really just the tip of an iceberg. Where you go to find real full detail about everything we did in 12.2.10 is in our release content documents. So you can start with some of these highlights to get an idea of areas that might be of interest. But if you're really trying to figure out what customizations, for example, I could retire by going to 12.2.10, you would work at the level of detail of consulting this release content document and say, okay, that one that I see right there may be sufficient for me to retire a customization that I had, or enable some business use case that I have that's been hard to have been able to accommodate by turning on a particular feature. So I encourage you to access our release content documents as well as other videos here on the Learning Channel. So with that, let me thank you for joining today, and hope you have a good opportunity to leverage all the great things we've tried to do for you on your behalf in 2020.